Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it.
Yo, hey team, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back today, playing around with Green-White Depths with Urza's Saga, which I think is pretty interesting with the new rules changes where Urza's Saga no longer dies to Blood Moon effects and also sticks around with the abilities of Urza's Saga, which is kind of neat. Not too sure how it's going to affect Legacy. The deck that I think of the most is probably Painter, being a deck that plays both. Maybe Moon Stompy picks up a list with Urza's Saga and takes advantage of it that way. But I wanted to play Urza's Saga because A, I wanted to see if that effect came up. And B, I think Ghost Vacuum is pretty well positioned in the format. It's nice that it doesn't affect our graveyard. We can just exile cards in end step at whim to keep opponents off Delirium, or obviously off Reanimate, the big thing. Things like Relic, Soul Guide, Relic targeting both players or getting rid of both graveyards is kind of annoying. It can be turned into a card, which is pretty interesting, which again, something like say Elves or D&T where it's not as relevant, being able to cycle it is pretty relevant. But I do like the Ghost Vacuum, seems decent versus the blue-red matchups and the blue-black matchups. He's only 1 mana, which is nice. And then I have also involved a Keen-Eyed Curator into the list, which is always tough. I think with Green-White, the best thing, or with any Depths deck, is to play to the game plan in game one. Don't care about your opponents too much, but I think with the current metagame, you just have to. You can't really just try to figure out a Depths plan without thinking about things like Reanimate. So I think Keen-Eyed is pretty relevant. It's a big threat, which is nice. And then the other card that I wanted to try out was just a one of Legolas's Quick Reflexes, which I don't really want multiples of because we aren't the biggest creature deck. But I do think it's just a nice way to potentially protect our threats or potentially remove opposing threats, which is cool. Playing a Step alongside the Talon Gates because Step has come up a few times where I've wanted a way to get through multiple blockers. And Talon Gates obviously can only get rid of one. So that's kind of the reasoning there. I've gone back up to 2 Flagstones just because how good it is with Crop Rotation and Reclaimer. And I was going to go to 4 Moxen, but it's really tough to find the space. I don't mind the 4 with the 2 libraries because once you find one, you can typically keep the others at bay unless you really want them. Like a second Endurance, again, a little bit of play against some of the graveyard decks. Prismatic Ending, having extra removal is pretty nice, and a pretty clean way to answer a flip to Fairy. Sorry. Tameo is quite nice. The sideboard, pretty normal. Like Aven Mind Sensor, probably not like a 2025 Legacy staple, but I think it's a nice way to have some sort of hate bear against, say, the Natural Order or Cradle Control lists, the Mirror, just pretty versatile. Gaddock Teague. Funnily enough, this is probably the first green deck in a long time that I haven't actually put Collector Oof in the 75 because I feel like Teague just answers all the decks that Oof currently does. Even things like the Karn Forge deck, which are predominantly artifacts, I find that Teague is just the better hate bear because of Kozilek's Command also being turned off, which is typically the way they remove Collector Oof. And Containment Priest, which I don't mind it against the blue-black decks, even as a 2/2 flash against their Bowmasters. Obviously turning off the Archon or Atraxa. It's decent versus Show and Tell. It's decent versus the Natural Order decks. It's decent versus the Nadu decks. So pretty keen to see how it goes. Containment Priest. I did have, instead of the Wooded Foothills, which is actually no longer in the list, I did have a copy of Ancient Tomb because I did have a copy of... I had 2 copies of Disrupting Flute in the sideboard, which I've been seeing coming up a lot, which I do really like to see. I just don't know how to play it. So I don't want to play it, but it is quite good, I assume, because you can name some namesake decks, which is nice, like Doomsday or Show and Tell. You can obviously, yeah, have some pretty nice effects on Planeswalkers and other things, but just because I haven't played with it, I don't want to start just yet, especially in what I would call a near lame deck format with a ban and announcement coming up that I assume will change things up, hopefully pretty meaningfully, but we'll see. That is pretty much it. Like Ghost Cancel and Endurance in the board. I think like if you really want to target graveyard decks, then Leyline of the Void is probably the best answer, just to turn them off straight away. But being a non-black deck outside of Mox Diamonds, you can't really cast it if you draw it. I think I'd rather just have some sort of graveyard hate interaction. Like, you know, Deafening Silence against Oops is also quite strong. So having cards that line up better against some of your other poor matchups, I think it's just good to have that there. Hey Granham, hey Fetch, could you convince a retired Izzet player to try out green-white style decks instead of going back to the ways of Xerox? From a competitive standpoint, pretty tough. I will shout out Sprouts. Sprouts is a very, very good legacy player who has had multiple top 8s and challenge finishes with green-white X decks. Recently, they have started a Patreon with a free guide to green-white lands, which I actually think is a great place to start. Just to get your understanding of green-white. It obviously is quite different to the luxuries of blue with cantrips and forces and multiple ways to get back that card disadvantage, strong threats. But yeah, I think lands is a really cool deck to play and very different to most other decks in Legacy. So I would check out Sprouts. Even their MTG Goldfish history has a huge acumen of finishes with green-white plays. I've like Michael Mapson. The Discord is fantastic. That's probably another great reason to go toward the deck, is because it has a fantastic community. The wins, I don't know. I do have blue decks and I do play blue every now and then, but I do find just with green-white, it is typically fighting with your hand tied behind your back, and I do like that challenge. So yeah, it is tricky. It is tricky, especially when blue-red seems quite strong right now with Cutter. Obviously, blue-black is very strong. But you can find that Discord right now, because I will quickly find it for you. In the meantime, we will start looking for a match in this league. Discord, lands, invite. Copy, chat. Boom. I think you can learn a lot by, if you're a blue player playing green-white and vice versa. I think there's a lot of green-white or just white, or I guess there's a lot of non-blue decks that I think are really good to learn from the other side of the table as well, to understand what really hurts in terms of what to go after. I think tonight, like, I would be very happy with the positive result, but I really just want to make sure that I'm making plays that I can find reasoning for. I'm taking my time. We're not trying to get any sort of free wins. We really want to make sure that we're, playing optimally. So let's go to gameplay. Nice. Jared. Yo. Gito Jared, big shout out to the podcast. I would say this is a mulligan because of the Dryad Arbor, unfortunately. If this hand had a Moxen, that would be quite strong, but I think here we do just want to mulligan this. Okay. I actually don't mind this hand. We have a Turn 1 Saga with Turn 1 Swords if needed. We have Wasteland, we have one piece of the Dark Depths. We probably want to keep this, potentially bottom the Dark Depths. That way we can go turn 1 Saga and then turn 1 Mox if need be, pitching the Step. And then we have Legacy Small Talk. Thank you very much. Yes, big shout out to the pod. All right, so let's keep. We do want to keep 2 threats in Knight and Saga. I don't think that's too greedy. So I think it is just going to be the Depths. Having a quick think. No, I'm going to bet on the Step. I think the Step in the deck is better, and there's a potential of destroying either crop or stage to go off that way. Ooh, goblins. Okay. I think crop rotation would actually be the best draw because then we can hold it up with the Mox Diamond. And there it is. So now we get to go Urza's Saga. I am actually going to play the Mox but get rid of the Wasteland. No, that's actually quite interesting because I do potentially just want guaranteed mana next turn. So I think we actually do this. Yes. Legacy's had some pretty interesting metagames. Lackey. Okay. There is a Wasteland. If we get to play this Flagstones, that's pretty great as well with the crop rotation. Interesting. No broadside bombardiers, but no. So this will resolve. And then we don't want to make a token here. So we kind of have to swords the Goblin Lackey. I'm just thinking of what we have to potentially get there. I think we're just going to swords the... I guess we go to beginning of combat and swords the Lackey so they can't make a mana in their main phase and cast something. Now the question is, do I want to use the crop rotation in my end step? Or in their end step, I should say, because we want to untap and be able to probably make a Saga token. Yeah. Go for Savannah. And then I don't mind the extra Wasteland here, but it doesn't do a whole lot against the broadside. I probably actually don't mind just another Flagstones. could get another Saga. It comes down for 1. But then on 2, we can't make a token next turn. I think I will just go with the flagstones. No, let's go with stage. I think stage turns on enough of potential value down the line. Okay. Tap like this, make a token. Get the boots. Play the wasteland, take out their wasteland. And then equip here. Okay. Does have menace. Prismatic's pretty cool. It did just miss a land drop, but also is like Knight. I don't mind going after the Skirk. Play the Knight. I think we want to get the Knight into play. Attack with the Construct. Equip the boots. Maybe a little aggressive to attack with the token there. I don't think this is going to be a game where the 3 matters, so I think holding it back there is probably right. It also means they can't attack with the Bombardiers too well. Although next turn we do have a 20/20 with haste, which is pretty sweet. Because we have access to Yav, so we sacrifice the Savannah, go and get Dark Depths, we activate it with the Yavimaya, which leaves us with the Mox Diamond open, which is enough for the Lava Spur boots. So pretty fortunate here because I don't believe they'll have an out to that. Nice. Lucky. We like the paths. Honestly, the Containment Priests as just 2/2 flash creatures, I don't mind. So they're kind of maybes. Hey Eureka, very cool to see you. And Akaleth, always a pleasure. And Mark. Like Safekeeper, I don't mind because it can just block a Lackey. The Ghost Vacuum can come out. The Crops are great because we really want to be going towards our plan. The Bajuka Bog is probably a card here. I think I could definitely have more structure with how I sideboard. And each match just like go through the lands, go through the removal, go through like the quick things you can side out, like Sword Splashers versus Tess, or Bajuka Bog versus Elves. Priest might be a little bit of like just thinking too much about it. The A Force is pretty interesting, but we do have access to the Prismatic. Elves and Tests are up there with Maverick in terms of decks of the format. The libraries are probably a little bit too cute. Keen Eyed Knights is just a big threat. Like potentially an Endurance. It's a decent body, but like maybe if I'm after flash creatures, the Containment Priests are enough. They also answer I kind of like this just in case they have like a Blood Moon effect, or obviously the Vials. We can still go after their mana. I think something like this is fine. The big thing is, do we have an answer to turn 1 Lackey? And like a Windswept Heath and a Sword Hand is perfect. This does not have an answer to turn 1 Lackey. And it doesn't have great mana either. So I'm pretty happy to mulligan this. And this also doesn't have a turn 1 answer for Lackey, unfortunately, because the Lush comes in tapped. Which I think anyway, this hand is just a little bit too slow. And I think when it comes to decks like Elves, if you're really worried about the early plays, which I am, I typically do mulligan quite aggressively for card quality over card quantity. Itagora, welcome. I saw you were playing some modern green, red-white energy with Cutter, which looked pretty sweet. Hope you had a great stream. What did you play against, and how did you go? And welcome all those from Tagora's stream. I'm Dukes on Twitch. I'm a Legacy streamer, if you want to call me that. I stream Legacy, I should say. I'm currently playing Green-White Depths against Mono-Red Goblins, and we are up a game. We're going to mull to 5, which is fine, to try to get a better hand, a better answer to like a turn 1 Lackey. I really like this hand because it has the Containment Priest as well. Pretty happy to bottom the Flagstones and the Wasteland and just get our mana going. Here's the Lackey, which unfortunately it is a path. I don't think a Dryad Arbor is going to live to see the day. The double basics do help. In that we're so close to a Reclaimer being a 3/4. Ooh, Port's pretty strong here. Nice. Saga's nice, but I don't want to play it into the Port, especially once it goes to 2 counters. So I think here I'm pretty happy with just fetching for the Forest and then playing out the Green Suns. And then next turn we have Saga hold up Priest. Probably tapping me down the, yeah. Which here I'm pretty happy to use it. Bombardiers is pretty sweet. It does mean we will get a token of the Saga, which doesn't mean a whole lot, given that we will be losing the Saga the following turn. I don't mind this block because the Goblin is a few things here. It is obviously fodder for the Bombardiers. It is also something that could get bigger through Horde, which is the 2-mana Goblin. So I think I will take this opportunity to block. We still have pretty decent mana. They have 3 cards left. Ooh, Wasteland's quite strong. Nice. Okay. Lush can help us find things. That can go in the bin. And then I think this Echoing Deeps is going to become a Saga. Ooh, okay. Another broadside's pretty good. We got a 10, and then I don't know if we have an out here. Swords is a decent draw. This comes in as a Saga. Two, three, four, five. You probably tap down the Saga here, holding up port. Just a 1. Interesting. Sadly, we don't have an out. I don't think we have an out that we could draw. Especially at 1 life. I guess it could have been swords. Swords this and then block this with the Saga. Do I want to change anything? I don't think so. There's a world where we just take out the force and then add in another creature. Just kind of rely on the priests if they do have vials. I don't mind that. On the play is definitely nice. All right, let's see what we can do with this 7. Okay, pretty happy to keep this. I think I'm also happy just to lead on the Yav. I don't want to show the fetch land just yet in case we draw like another fetch land. It can go for basics. I'm trying to think outside of like Fury or Pyrokinesis what they have to deal with Reclaimer turn 1. But if they get rid of this and play a Lackey, we have Fetch for a Savannah, Prismatic Ending Lackey, and then we have Crop Rotation open in case they have a Wasteland. And it is a Pyrokinesis. Interesting. Getting rid of a Munitions Expert. Okay. Wasteland's pretty cool. We will fetch here. Or a Savannah. I could go for Plains, seeing we have the Yav, but then if they Wasteland the Yav, I guess we have Crop. I don't mind going for Sav here. No. Do I really care about Blood Moon? I probably do just because of Force of Vigor. And it's just one of those cards like, what do I lose to? It is a Blood Moon effect. And because we have the Crop, I think I am happy to go for the Plains because although it might cut us off green if they Wasteland us, we do have the Crop to save us. Okay. They don't wasteland us. I wonder here if I do like wasteland the wasteland. And then if they respond, we have crop. And that makes Reclaimer a 3/4. I can even get fetch land into basic. And then hold up the path for, say, a broadside bombardiers. Needle's pretty good. Yeah, I did want to put them in a situation where they could use the wasteland in a positive way. Talon Gates. I think one more turn. To be fair, there's nothing that really stops the knight, I believe, outside of like relic and also ability to get rid of it. We could just be looking at like hold up path, smash, smash. But yeah, there is a world where if you have the 1/2 Reclaimer, play that, play it into an attacking lackey, and then if they try to munitions expert, then you can try to get some value there. Interesting. Flagstones is a nice pickup, but obviously without the Reclaimer online, it's less great. Really tricky one, because knight could also get... I should have thought at the end of the draw step, because I could still use the knight to go and get a saga, trigger, main phase trigger, and then I get to make the token straight away while also holding up path. I think I'm happy just to hold up the knight, because it also allows me to hold up stage. One thing I'm going to do here as well is just make sure I can turn on my draw step. So what I'm going to do is copy my flagstones, and then I have 2 legendary lands, and I'm going to keep the Thespian stage version, which gives me a free look for a plains, which I'll go and get the Lush Portico, which allows me to have a look at the top. And then path on top is pretty good, but I am going to be using... I will only have 1 mana available next turn anyway, so I'd probably rather draw something like a Wasteland or a Crop Rotation. So here we can sack the forest, go and get depths, and then use this mana to copy the dark depths, holding up the planes for the path. And then we want to keep this version with no counters on it, which will trigger, give us a 20/20. And there's another stage, which is kind of nice. As a just in case. There is a world I should have pathed the Skirk in upkeep. I think I should have, because I think there I should have thought of what are the outs that my opponent could have. And obviously like Karakas potentially out of the board. Like is it Dead Gone potentially? But I think more so it's probably like getting through me by going wide, and they do that with Muxus. So I think I should have used the path at the end of their draw step on the Skirk to keep them off 6 mana unless they have like an Ancient Tomb. So definitely some things to work on there. Especially if they have 4 mana in play, but they went for the Skirk. It does, as Acolyth said, kind of stink a little bit of a Muxus. But hey, we're on the board, which is nice. But yeah, it's been tricky finding time for streaming lately. I mean, it's currently 11:30 p.m. It's obviously a late stream, but I just had that itch. But yeah, I think Legacy's just in a pretty interesting spot. A lot of talk about like upcoming bans. Fair few decks that are like kind of at the top above the others, but I still think there's a place for like a green-white deck somewhere in the mix. Obviously green-black, like Cradle Control is doing quite well. This is a bit of a nothing hand. There isn't really a plan. It's hope they're a creature deck, hope they're a deck that's a graveyard deck. We have acceleration, but what are we accelerating into? We have interruption, but is that really what we want to be doing? So I think what I might do here is yeah, I want a mulligan because I want to have a more proactive start, just like this. This is pretty great. We can bottom the Lush and go turn 1 Reclaimer. I'm going to keep the Windswept for now. There's some few advantages of playing the Windswept in that we get our white source straight away. Which potentially means like Wasteland Swords off top allows us to Wasteland and then Swords the following turn something. If we go Wasteland into Reclaimer, sorry, a Fetch Land into Reclaimer, then Fetch Land off the top allows us turn 2 to get a 3/4 Reclaimer because you have 2 fetches and the land you sacked in the bin. But I think because we're on a 6, I do want to try to keep this for the Lush potentially. And I do like that this start could just mean that we're on Cradle Control. Flooded Strand. Okay. Typically going to be a Swords or a Prismatic, but pretty happy to see the turn 1 Ponder. One thing to note against these sort of decks as well is that if we untap and want to play the Heath, I might just want to either hold up the Reclaimer or play the Library. I think in this instance, I want to go for Savannah, which will sack to the Reclaimer, but I do want to get this Library into play. Nice. Get a free attack in. because at least if they deal with the Reclaimer as a threat, the library should find us the third land to get the Knight into play and just keep these threats going, which should eat removal spells, which then we can hopefully try to get the Dark Depths combo in play and attack our opponent when they have no removal left. The Ponder was a shuffle, by the way, which means they're probably trying to find some sort of removal, or if they're a combo deck, just find A or B. They haven't given away too much yet. Oh, Shadow Spear, okay. Interesting. So Shadow Spear to me says Urza's Saga. So they're going to be a Saga list with Ponder, which potentially could be like a... Let's have a quick think. A Nadu list? Okay. Here I kind of like paying a little bit, but we have a lot of options. We have Saga, we have Fetch and also Reclaimer, we have Knight. I don't mind that Fetch and also Reclaimer is sort of two spells or doing two things. So I think I'll put the Yav on top, we'll keep the Saga, and then we'll play the Windswept Heath. Maybe not. Maybe I'm happy just holding back the Saga here and also holding up the Endurance. Quick think. Didn't do anything last turn. This could be the turn we get the Knight into play as well. I'm pretty happy to see if we can. My only thought is that if they are, say, like a Cephalid deck, then tapping out without the Endurance Open's pretty tough. But I think I'm happy just to jam. I think this Fetch will tell us a lot, especially if it gets a Surveyor land like a Lush or the blue-white Hedge. Okay. Still could definitely be a Nadu deck. Most likely a Savannah or just a Plains. Ooh, Teferi. I don't mind this because if they bounce something, the other threat kills them. Or kills the Teferi at least. Putting back the Dryad, but paying for the Keen-Eyed. Now we get to play the Windswept as a shuffle effect. Attack the Teferi. And then I think here we're just going to hold up the Saga. I could play the Keen-Eyed and eat two things, but I feel like just getting value off the Saga might be a little bit better. Okay. Okay. So we'll make a token. And then also fetch. Get the lush. Crop rotation will be kind of cool. That in the graveyard. Flame is now a 3/4. Wasteland, okay. Have a look. Double Wasteland. Put the bog back, put a Wasteland back. Trigger, interesting. I think we're using Reclaimer to end step Talon Gates, which is a little bit tough. Yeah, last turn night maybe better. Maybe a little bit of tunnel vision looking at the value from Saga. We also have a lot of time to play with. Yeah, I think we tap like this, make a token. Get those boots. I don't think Wasteland them is good enough. I think it's going to be Yav. And then pass. Trying to think with Talon Gates, when does it come back? Great question. I feel like we just want to upkeep. Shuffle away that Wasteland as well. Interesting. As if they're trying to find something like a Mind Sensor. This will trigger and obviously allow them to draw a card, but it is what it is. I mean, maybe, just maybe, there's a world where the knight with haste. But we do know about that. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay. If we could make them force the knight, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, near lethal. Sadly, no swords. Two, four, five, six, seven. Yeah, they can block with the Tamiyo. Yeah. Okay. I guess we can try to go for a Safekeeper, and then try to potentially draw into stage to make Dark Depths to attack with the 2020. Hey, Sato-san. Thank you very much. Not my wife just yet. Just yet. But I hope you're well. Hope your family's well. We did obviously Green Suns for the Safekeeper, so the library is live. Also, one thing to note in this matchup. Hey, Judo Jared. Yeah, look, I think it's pretty tough if we do find the Dark Depths combo line through. Yeah, against goblins. We were talking about like Caracas potentially, or like Dead Gone. Or I think what I should have done, I had a path in hand, and on that last turn, I should have gone after your Skirk in your draw step, because the out for you was probably a really good Muxus and just going wide. And we obviously didn't consider that. But yeah, I think it's a tricky matchup for goblins if we do find the fast 2020, and also just have decent answers against Lackey, which obviously like a 3-4 turn one, or even just a 1-2 Reclaimer. It's pretty good. I wonder if they take into consideration attacking with the Shadow Spear on the Nadu, because they might actually need the damage, the life gain. Even a Keen-Eyed Curator is pretty scary. Yeah, it's pretty tricky, because if you don't pyro the Summoning Sick Reclaimer, then the Reclaimer can protect itself. Now, unfortunately, I don't want a 6 here. Voice of Victory is pretty interesting. I haven't seen too much of this card in Legacy, but it's nice to see it pop up. I feel like Goblins just needs one more like Modern Horizons level Goblin. Some sort of recursion Goblin that's also early on. Oh, that is going to pass. Potentially because they have 7 cards in hand. All right. Come on, just natural stage. guess we have the Keen-Eyed potentially. Can give haste. Put on top. Put on top. Play Keen-Eyed. See if they force this. They definitely should, because we can... Urza's Saga means we can eat just 3 things. Oh, wow. Is that going to be enough? Keen-Eyed? Eat? Saga? Eat Planeswalker? I guess eat Creature? Eat Planeswalker? They can of course bounce the Lava Spur Boots. So I hope they actually mess up with the Brazen Borrower. Yeah, I didn't think of the Brazen Borrower just bouncing the boots and stopping haste that way. But maybe they don't see it. I kind of hope they tunnel vision into combat damage. They got to run. Damn. I think they were going to get there. I really do. We don't have too much for this matchup outside of Containment Priest, which is still a bit of a stretch. We don't have like, not a Dampening Sphere, Dampening Matrix effect. We don't have like Bowmasters to interact with Nomads. We don't have too much creature removal, so Nadu can be pretty tough, but I kind of feel like the cards you want to play around with are obviously Safekeeper and sometimes Sajiri Step. Just make sure against Nadu you don't give your 20/20 protection from green too early on, because that obviously means you can't Safekeeper it after, which it might be playing around like Nadu and Endurance, but that can be pretty tricky to get to. A little bit low on land, but I don't mind this hand. Like turn 1, Reclaimer, turn 2, hold up Reclaimer, we got quick reflexes, we got Prismatic Ending. We have Endurance if really needed. Okay, very happy just to see the pass. Oh, they're going to fetch. Wow, just blue. That's kind of scary. As if it's show and tell, which kind of makes me want to keep the Karakas. Huh. That is a little bit awkward. We do have Echoing Deeps to go and get it again, or Endurance ourselves to get it back into play. I think we did, yeah. Let's go and get Flagstones. Keep making land drops? No, but that is fine. Ancient Tomb definitely gives away that they're on shenanigans, and I assume we're looking at a Intuition here potentially. The other Savannah. Probably just go for a Wasteland here. And then at least if we draw a land, we can Wasteland and also Mox. Okay. See what they want to do. Nothing. Right. I guess we're just putting in the knight. Another Omni's pretty good. Ooh. Okay. What's this going to be? Yeah. Damn. Oh. I guess we're getting rid of a Mox. Not too much we can do here. Other than hope they just have nothing. Go for stage to try to draw like the natural depth. Okay. Again, can you imagine if this Mox was turned on? Oh. Oh my gosh. Probably should have played the Mox, yeah. I should have played the Mox there so we could hold up the quick reflexes. Yeah, that's pretty huge. Wow. Okay. This can't be happening. Oh my gosh. That did not just happen. All right. The forces, the carpets, the containment priests, the deafening silences, the Teague, keen-eyed, Ramanap, swords, vacuum, bog. I don't mind keeping in like some number of swords, like maybe one. Prismatic can come out. Probably is just endurance. Wow. Crazy. Absolutely insane. Okay. I like this as deafening silence into Teague. What I can also do is Mox Diamond pitch step play deafening silence. I guess I want to play the Saga as well, just to speed that up a little bit. So let's go Mox. I don't believe they're going to be a Daze deck. Pitch the step. A Saga. A deafening silence. Okay, no Ancient Tomb's quite nice for us. And then let's go Savannah. Teague, which does turn off the other green suns, but I think that's okay, especially if they force this. I think they have a force, and that's why they're pondering a little bit on this, thinking about what we could get. Maybe it's a case of if you don't force this and you're thinking of Teague, what are you forcing? But Pontano Shuffle, Island, Flutterstrand makes me think of Brainstorm, more so than just fetch for a Surveyor land. Teague also a little bit awkward with Force of Vigor as well. Okay, they will. Force, pitch, force. Kind of hope this is just going to be a stock up. Huh. Oh, I meant to tap that, of course. That's pretty huge. All right. In that case, I might just priest here and put on the boots. Apologies, that misclick was obviously pretty huge. I could see Mind Sensor just being enough of a disruptive threat in this matchup. So it has to be Omniscience into creature. Opponent says when they intuitioned, they didn't get it to hand. So I'll actually tweak them as well. Well, I guess we are here. All right, on the play, which is really nice, and we have a pretty decent hand of like turn 1 Reclaimer, turn 2 land, hold up Reclaimer, hold up Crop. I like leading on the Forest, just in case my opponent keeps a hand where they might be a little bit stumbling, might stumble a little bit for green mana. Right, opponent on 6. Mox Opal, interesting. Bolt. Okay. This might be a Beseech deck. Echo. Okay. Not too much we can do here. We can sideboard to Deafening Silence, but otherwise we're in a pretty tricky spot. Nice. Deafening Silence is good. Obviously the Force of Vigors are pretty good. The Gaddock Teague. The swords are a pretty easy cut. The Caracas is a pretty easy cut. Prismatic I don't mind because they typically play out one or two of their artifacts through the Deafening Silence. I don't think the Legolas, Reflexes can come out. Mind Sense is pretty interesting, especially seeing their own Beseech. I think like a Knight could come out. We still want to be pretty quick in terms of comboing off. I don't think Ghost Vacuum does a whole lot, especially if they're on Echo. There's no real time to do much, so I think this is going to be it. Talon Gates is pretty medium. Is there a better card? Potentially if they try to Gaia's Will. The extra endurance might just be worthy. Extra green card for Force of Vigor. It does have the Force, which is kind of nice. But it doesn't have Deafening Silence, which I think I'm pretty happy just to try to aggressively mulligan towards Deafening Silence, as that's really the one card that trumps all. The Force of Vigor is very nice, but we did see Thoughtseize, and this hand with just Reclaimer in play and no Force of Vigor is pretty rough, so... No. Well, I thought we might hit it a little bit earlier. Sadly, no mana here. Oof. Wow. I guess we keep... Yeah, damn. I thought we would have seen Deafening Silence. I think we can just concede to that and move on. Tough. Not too much to say there. Typically, if we get to keep like a decent hand with a Deafening Silence, we have a pretty good shot. Usually it's just bounce spells that can deal with the Deafening Silence. Okay. This does have Saga going for it. We do have like mana, Ghost Vacuum if it's relevant. I don't mind seeing where a hand like this goes. It is a bit of a 6 with the Dryad Arbor, but you never know. Kind of hope they're holding up Entomb, but they don't have access to Daze. I also don't think I have the luxury of just going for a basic there. Pretty happy to go for Saga. So they obviously didn't play the same land because they just brainstormed and want to fetch away some bad cards. Interesting, they put an Underground Sea into bin, so I think this Wasteland isn't going to be doing a whole lot. Okay. Try to fight. Double Days. Yeah. I don't think we can do too much there. I don't mind the priests, seeing that they also just do a decent answer at dealing with Bowmaster if we have a library in play, and obviously turning off the other half of that combo. Yeah, Triple Days is a tough battle. I don't mind going down on a Mox and a library. The Ramanap can be a bit of a plan, but it can also come back to bite us with Reanimate. The Ramanap has to go. Probably Quick Reflexes. Prismatic I like because it does give us some out to Fairy. Might be a crop against like a Force Days deck. Boots I think is still pretty good. Tough. It could just be a Green Suns. I don't think in this matchup there's like a specific Green Suns target you really want to find. Pretty awful mana, which is tough because it does have the Ghost Vacuum, but it doesn't do a whole lot else. Okay. We can go Flagstones into Boots. Interesting, they don't want the Barrogoyf. I think because this is my last threat, I just want to be able to play it around days. And then I still get to go in with the Lava Spout Boots. Okay. Happy to see if we can block this. There's a world if they have days, they try to wasteland the Heath, but because we have the Yav, we can just tap the Heath for mana. I will fetch here for Lush, just to see what's up. Another threat would be really nice. Prismatic's pretty good as well. This means we can try to deal with the Tamiyo without the endurance. Yo. Hey Scry, thanks for the Prime sub, a huge thank you. I very much appreciate that. I think here we actually just want to try to put the boots on and attack the Tamiyo. We'll get negs, so it'll still stick around, which is tough. But at least if they spend a removal spell on the endurance, we can then try to prismatic the Tamiyo. And that's very cool to hear. Hope you have a great weekend ahead. A little bit of time off. But yeah, 5 cards, essentially 6 cards in our opponent's hand with the clue. Just a little bit too tough to fight without like a Sylvan Library of our own or... Murktide. Sadly, a crop at this stage just isn't going to do it by itself, but it's one piece of the puzzle. But they also have a wasteland. Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's a great spot out of this, unfortunately. Really tough. Definitely tough not to get that extra game against the Storm deck either. But overall, deck didn't feel too bad. A little bit sorcery speed and slow at times, but the Saga package did feel kind of nice. Like having the Ghost Vacuum game 1 is pretty sweet. But unfortunately, Blue-Black for the decks that I typically play is just a bit of a write-off that there isn't too much I can do without them getting a bit unlucky for me to get there. I think the matchup just is really strongly in their favor. Just if we care about the unfair plan, then they usually win in the fair plan, and vice versa. Fatal Push also just a really strong removal spell against a lot of the creatures that I like to play, but potentially some change coming. So we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, like I think like against the combo deck, pretty unfortunate not to hit the Deafening Silence in a hand. The Bant Nadu deck I think was, yeah, probably not going to go our way. Same with a Show and Tell deck if their hand didn't glitch, but yeah, just nice to play some Magic. It's always nice to just, yes, enjoy playing some of the different lists around Depths and Maverick at the moment instead of trying to like competitively dive into one. Because I think that, yeah, hopefully there's a little bit of change coming with upcoming announcements, and we might see a better position for Green-White in Legacy. But yeah, until then, a huge thank you to all of you for coming in and watching. I'll be back potentially Sunday morning, but we'll see how we go. I'm going to see who is streaming otherwise. Jarvis is playing some Magic, which is cool, so I'm going to send you over there. But have a great weekend, and hopefully we'll catch you soon. A big thank you to the new followers and the new subscribers. Very much appreciate it. Big shout out to Geodude Jared and the podcast Legacy Small Talk. All right, see you next time.